So, what happens when half of the Marvel Universe rallies behind Captain America and the other half of the Marvel Universe, heroes and villains alike, rally behind Iron Man and the two teams go toe to toe? Well, you get a civil war. Well, what would cause a civil war in the Marvel Universe? And when it comes down to it, would Iron Man really kill Captain America? So many questions and more answered on this week's edition of We Promise Comics. This is JPar.
And this is Myles.
And you are listening to We Promise Comics. This week, we review the Marvel story arc, Civil War. But before we get started, I just want to let everyone know that the intro music you're listening to is provided by local Sudbury artist Jeff Martell. This week on the show, we review Civil War, the original Civil War story arc in Marvel, which took place 2006-2007. It was a huge Marvel crossover between all the characters. There was a 7-issue limited series written by Mark Millar and penciled by Steve McNiven, and it ran through various other titles published by Marvel at the time. The storyline builds upon the events that developed in previous Marvel crossovers, particularly Avengers Disassembled, House of M, and Decimation. The tagline for the series is, "Whose side are you on?" Now, obviously, we're doing this because of the upcoming Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, Captain America: Civil War. And, much like the Civil War story from 2006-2007, it is Team Cap versus Team Iron Man. Now, some might say they might have decided to do this because, the Batman versus Superman coming out. Or they've thought this is the last Captain America movie. What's the best Captain America storyline you could do? Civil War, maybe. Myles, what do you think of this story arc of Civil War in Marvel at this time?
I loved it. It was long, very long, and this story arc for me was a little bit different than a regular story arc because there was a lot of character development and story compared to action. There's some main action sequences, but I felt like this arc in itself wanted to bring out characters from the woodwork, from old rogues galleries of certain characters. So you see a lot of development versus you see a lot of action, and I like that in a comic book.
I like stories that's like a who's who of that universe. It's like, this story affects everyone. It's not just the Avengers, it's not just the X-Men, it's not just Spider-Man and his little old Aunt May. It's everybody in the Marvel Universe, and that's what makes it so interesting. You learn about these extra characters that you didn't even know about. You get pulled in, you're like, we're already here for Cap and Iron Man and Thor, maybe, if he's in this story. I don't know, we'll talk about that in a few seconds. For Spider-Man, obviously, who's in this story. We're in here for these characters already, and then you get to learn about, like you said, these maybe some Class B or Class C heroes or villains that we're not used to seeing.
Yeah, I know, I completely agree with you. Reading this comic book, it was pretty cool to see, honestly, characters that I've never even seen before that were from Spider-Man's past, fight Spider-Man, or people from
the Avengers
past, where we're talking the golden age, like 50s, 60s comics, coming to light and showing you how they would fight today. So that was pretty neat to see.
All right, but before we get into the details of this story, like I said, it was written by Mark Millar, who we've been talking about a lot on We Promise Comics lately. We talked about him in Old Man Logan. We talked about him for Red Sun. And now we're talking about him again. So he's done some pretty interesting stories over time for comics in general. Also, the artist in this one is McNiven, Steve McNiven. We've talked about him before as well. He was the artist for Old Man Logan. He is an excellent artist, great gritty artist. Like his work, and he's Canadian, so you gotta love that shit.
Bringing up Mike Miller is, I think, very important because, like you said, he did Old Man Logan as well.
Which is going to be adapted soon as well.
Yeah, it's going to be an adapted screenplay, which, lo and behold, they're doing the same thing for Civil War, so you gotta say something about his writing ability. If they're pulling two major arcs from two major characters and putting them on the main screen.
And Kick-Ass is his, like he also wrote Kick-Ass.
Yeah.
So there you go. He already has, we've already talked about some of the work he's done already.
Yeah, he does grittier, darker, deep stories, bringing out different emotions or different actions that those characters would take they wouldn't necessarily see.
Yeah, I think that's what we said in the past before too, is that he has really dark, gritty stories. And it's stories that we need, that we love to see in the Marvel Universe, because that's some of the stuff that always made me kind of in awe when I was a kid, some of the crazy stuff that would happen in the Marvel Universe. Not only in the What If comics, but just in the Marvel Universe in general. Some of the people who die or just die in weird ways, or weird powers that they end up having that they don't know about, or someone takes over their abilities or something weird, always forever changing. And it was actually good because Marvel had this running continuity that went on for a long time, 516, Earth 516. And this one also takes place in Earth 516, which is the big continuity that most people are familiar with in the Marvel Universe. So let's get into it. In the movies, obviously it's not going to be the same as the movies, so if you're hearing what we're saying and it doesn't sound right, you're probably right, it doesn't. Read the comics, this is the original story. We're going to be giving away some spoilers. Probably try not to give away too much at the end, but we'll be talking about most of the spoilers in this. It starts off with a young team. And what is that young team's name, Miles?
The New Warriors.
The New Warriors. And who's their leader?
Speedball.
And they're doing a reality TV show based on themselves being superheroes. And they're, going to apprehend these villains. And Nitro, being a part of the team, is a dangerous mutant who can make himself blow up.
Yeah, he can basically cause a huge explosion and then reconstitute himself later on.
Mm-hmm. So he's not killed by the explosion, but everyone else could potentially be killed around him.
Right. This takes place in Stamford, Connecticut, which is very important because that name, that place, that location gets brought up a lot in Civil War, and we'll talk about that more, I guess, as we go along.
Yep. And so basically these young bucks move in trying to make themselves look good on their TV show. They kind of get Nitro in a corner, not really thinking of the circumstances, getting him into a situation where he's going to make himself destruct. And which he does. And in this case, it happens to be a huge explosion, which kills about 300 people or something like that?
At first they thought it was 300 people, but then it ended up being 1,000 people.
Oh, there you go.
60 of them were
some of them being children because there was a school nearby. So they really play this up, and the government's already not... It's already starting to look bad for superheroes in the government's eyes. Right. There's already been a few developing stories before this that, the government's already starting to look at the superheroes in the Marvel Universe. Which I said, the Marvel Universe is a continuing thing, or it was a continuing thing when it was Earth 516, so continuity's not around anymore, but during this time, a lot of stuff built up to where we are now in the Marvel Universe to get to this point.
Yeah, the House of M was a huge comic book arc. They got rid of pretty much all the mutants with a snap of Scarlet Witch's fingers, so you see them in this comic book arc, but just for 2 or 3 pages, and that's it.
We'll get on to X-Men's involvement later. Now, after this happens, Tony is asking Spider-Man to join him. I'm pretty sure Tony's already, actually, before this even I think before the explosion happens, I'm not sure about it, but 100%. But Tony is asked by the government to basically sign into this human registration. And in the comics, this is where Tony reveals his identity as Tony Stark. It happens much, much sooner in the movies, but here's where he reveals his identity for the first time to the government.
Not only does he reveal his identity, but he reveals that he has a substance abuse problem.
Yeah, he's
He's an
admits that he's an
alcoholic.
alcoholic.
Yeah. So when you say that this superhuman person has a substance abuse problem, it really goes to show like maybe they should be registered because this person has potential to take out a country with a suit, and he's an alcoholic. So
Yeah.
we should probably take keep a close eye
Billionaire
on
playboy, he likes philanthropist, likes to have fun,
with a super suit and an alcohol abuse problem.
Yeah, used to sell arms. It's kind of, sell arms to, other countries even. But that's a whole other story altogether.
Yes.
So he's trying to get not young Peter Parker. This is married Peter Parker at this point because maybe everyone's used to this teenage Peter Parker, but this is the Peter Parker that I'm used to. This is the older Peter Parker who's already married to Mary Jane. He's got his life, already. He's still a photographer. He's going back to school sometimes. I don't know. But anyways, I'm used to the older Peter Parker, not the young one going to high school like people see in the cartoons or the movies. And, like, Tony Stark would be like a hero to him because they're both scientists. And this guy just comes up to you and he's like, hey, you want a job, kid? He's like, here, I even got a new spider suit for you. No, it's the Iron Spider. And he's got this metallic Spider-Man suit that kind of looks like Iron Man suit, but a little bit of Spider-Man suit.
Well, we might be going a little bit too forward here. The reason why he wants him on his team is Spider-Man is so highly recognized in the superhero community that he knows that people will rally towards his cause if Spider-Man is there as well. So that's very important. So yeah, he gives him the suit and he takes him under his wing. Kind of becomes that father figure that Peter Parker is always looking for.
Always searching for because
he
misses his Uncle Ben. He never knew his father. Has some sort of weird pseudo father-son relationship with J. Jonah Jameson, even though he's always making a bad name of Spider-Man. Even there's other characters as well. That's a very good point about Spider-Man's character. He is always searching for that father figure.
Yeah.
And now let's get to Cap's point of the story here. And obviously they're trying to register heroes, and Maria Hill, being the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. at this point of the story, starts talking to Cap, about registering and helping them take down other heroes who refuse to register. Well, Cap doesn't really agree with that.
Cap is always fighting for freedom. He believes that wars don't need to be started. War is the last resort to talking failing. So he sees taking people in and putting them in slavery as World War II Germany all over again.
Right, he was there for Germany.
He was there, he's seen it, it didn't work, and he's seen what needed to be done to get it fixed and rectified, and he doesn't want it to come to that again.
And so, yeah, he doesn't agree to go with Maria Hill, and then she tells the S.H.I.E.L.D. soldiers that she has with them to open fire, and Cap says says the opposite, basically, to put their guns down. And Maria's like, Captain America's not in charge here. Open fire, or keep the guns pointed at him. And then basically he has to brawl all these S.H.I.E.L.D. soldiers and escape. Kind of similar to what happened in Winter Soldier in a weird way.
Yeah. Different ideals clashing and how they resolve it. It usually ends up with Cap winning the fray because he's badass, so...
Even though he's Captain America and we're Canadian, he kind of gets a lot of slack, or even for other countries, I'm sure he gets a lot of slack for being Captain America because he's a symbol of the U.S. But when you get down to it, if you learn more about Captain America, he's actually a pretty cool character. Yeah, he went toe-to-toe with Batman in DC versus Marvel, so that's something to think about. But moving forward with this storyline, other things are happening to other heroes. Human Torch getting attacked by a mob. This is how we're starting to see the people are starting to react towards the heroes because of the way they've been slandered on TV. And, well, not also because of what happened with the explosion, so they're being held responsible at this point.
Yeah, it's showing the backlash of how regular Joe Schmo people are seeing superheroes and how there's no accountability for their actions. So when they see Human Torch out at a bar,
He's out at a nightclub having a good time. He's with one of his hot girlfriends, and he's let into the club before they are, so they get upset about that. And it's just like, Human Torch being the cocky kid that he is, even though he's probably much older at this point. He's probably about Parker's age, which is probably about 30 or 40 at this point. I don't know how old they're really supposed to be, but they're not teens anymore.
Early 30s, probably.
Yeah. So he just says, next time you save the world from Galactus, maybe they'll let you in early, kid, And then he's like, oh, well, how about the next time you burn down a school, you baby killer? They start, calling him that kind of thing. And then, then they just basically attack him like a mob. That just riles up the crowd, and then they attack him. So that ends up being the thing in this. And then Wolverine. Wolverine has a part in this, which you pointed out to me was much larger part of the story than I realized, but it's a little side story that doesn't really happen a part of the main 7-issue arc of Civil War, but it's like a side story in the Wolverine issues. You have to collect them on the side, and you would see that Wolverine's trying to track down Nitro.
Wolverine, so right now the world thinks that all the new Warriors are dead, and they don't know what caused the explosion because Nitro was able to reconstitute himself and leave. He took a bus somewhere. Wolverine knows this because he's able to track him with his nose. He's the best tracker in the Marvel Universe. Anyways, throughout Wolverine's little mini story arc in the background, he is chasing after Nitro, and he wants answers. He wants to know how he was able to do what he did, because he knew that explosion that was caused was way too big. That wasn't Nitro's MO. It was something else was behind this. Someone else was behind this. So he wants answers. And I don't know how far you want to get into that.
Well, maybe that's something we'll let the fans find out more about, because it's not a part of the main 7 issues of Civil War. But yes, it is an important storyline that does happen on the side. It gets into a CD corporation that kind of has a hand in the heroes fighting. Carrying on with the other characters, Iron Man is now approaching the X-Men, talking to Emma Frost about joining his side of the battle, and X-Men don't agree so much.
No, Tony gets turned down immediately.
It was a short visit.
It was a very short visit. It was between Emma Frost and Tony Stark, and Emma basically laid it out. How come you weren't there when we needed you? And now that you need us, you want us to drop everything?
Right.
So,
very much talking about the House of M storyline.
Yeah, there's hardly any mutants left. Pretty much what's at the Academy, the Xavier Institute.
Yeah.
That's it. That's pretty much it.
And then he's about to leave, and then Bishop's like, psst, come here.
Yeah.
Not sure what that was about, but I think he joins Tony later.
I don't really know.
I didn't really
see Bishop at all.
Yeah, I didn't really get into that part of the story.
No.
But he is on Team Iron Man later, I think.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because Cable's on Team Cap.
Yes.
Alright, speaking of Team Cap, the Secret Avengers are formed, which is Cap, Hercules, Goliath, and Daredevil. And they're in secret identities and having secret meetings at this shop. Trying to still run their side of their Avengers team, or their team, And then they end up being lured into a trap.
Yeah, Iron Man knows the only way to get these superheroes out of hiding is to get them to do what they do best, and that's save people. So they create, basically...
Which is a little underhanded, considering he's done the same thing and usually... You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyways, it's a trap by Iron Man and his team, and they attack Cap's team.
Yeah, it's a chemical plant. They think that the chemical plant is going into this nuclear meltdown. They get there, there's no problems. Oh, lo and behold, you have Iron Man's group of people there to apprehend all of Cap's people. And it just becomes an all-out brawl, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Just chaos.
Now, is this the point? I think Tony does give Cap one more chance or something like that to kind of because obviously they don't come to fists right away. They are friends. They're trying to figure this out. But, they've already taken down a couple of Cap's guys and imprisoned them. So it's personal at this point. And he goes to shake hands with Tony, and he puts on this little device that actually circuits his
armor.
Yeah, his armor. His suit.
Yeah, that gives Captain America the upper hand for about 3 seconds, and then the suit does its thing, it's able to figure it out, and then comes right back, and then Iron Man's able to take out every single person on the team with some sort of audio blast that goes into everybody's head.
Then he starts beating down on Cap.
Yeah.
And this upsets Hercules, and he's had enough, and he's just about to take out Iron Man for doing this, and then a bolt of lightning strikes him.
Yeah, you see...
seemingly
Mjolnir.
from...
Yeah, from Thor, it looks like.
Yeah, who's standing above them. And then you go into the next issue, and you find out it gets a little bit further. This battle commences, and Thor is just unleashing hell onto Cap's team. He even goes as far as to put a thunderbolt through Goliath and kill him.
Yeah, the Goliath comes up to Thor and basically says that he's going to take him out right there, 3 seconds flat, and Thor just puts a bolt lightning through his heart and kills him dead, and that stops the whole battle.
Yeah.
Everybody just looks at each other like, holy crap. You know, we're fighting each other to subdue each other, but now someone's dead. Now this is real.
Yeah.
This is
now it's for realsies.
Yeah, for realsies for sure.
It's like we were just having fun, throwing fists and destroying public property, but now that someone's dead.
Yeah, there was a line in the
So
before.
it's like that old saying in the Marvel Universe: "It's all fun and games until Goliath dies." Or until someone gets a thunderbolt. Someone gets a thunderbolt through their chest.
That old saying.
That old saying.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a line in the sand before, but this made it real. So now you have people questioning on both sides. Is this right? Is this what we should be doing? Spider-Man talks to Tony 101 and says, you told me it wasn't going to come down to this. You told me it wasn't going to get to this point. And now look what we're...
that kind of happens later. Invisible Woman also defects as well. She immediately saves the other team.
That's right. Yeah, immediately puts everybody in a protective
and she
shield
was
from
and
Thor.
she was on Iron Man's team. And despite the fact that she goes on Cap's team after this, Reed is still on Iron Man's team.
Yes.
And because we begin to find out that Thor isn't Thor after all. He's a part clone, part android, made by Tony Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, and Hank Pym, a.k.a. Ant-Man, or in this one, he's Yellow Jacket in this one.
That's right.
Yeah, so they made themselves a Thor robot clone monster that basically has no empathy and kills.
It was called Project Lightning, and they took him out for a test drive for this one particular instance in case things got out of hand.
And then, whoops, Goliath's dead.
Yeah, now Goliath is dead. So
who is Goliath, you ask? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. But he is good friends with... he's basically a self-made superhero. I guess he gets a hold of some Pym particles, and he's able to increase his size.
How come it's so easy to steal these Pym particles?
I don't know if it's easy, but I think Pym was just giving them out at parties or birthdays or something. Hey,
just to be popular with the kids?
Yeah,
you want some Pym particles?
You want to be a superhero? Here you go. It doesn't really matter who he is, but I think it does cause a lot of confusion because Goliath was really good friends with Thor, and Thor was able to kill him, no questions asked, without being told by anybody to do it. So that kind of created a ripple effect in itself. So okay,
all right, so
yeah,
you can go in more into that for sure. You can go on more about everything. There's lots of little side stories that happen. Trying to cover the main story. Now Spider-Man is starting to reconsider being on Iron Man's side, like you said, and he starts questioning Tony. He actually confronts Tony, and he gets into a fight with him. He gets into a fight, but he runs away after. But he's still hurt from the fight, and he's kind of like hiding out from Tony, and then these two like Class C Spidey villains. You said maybe better than Class C, but I don't know. They are Jack-O-Lantern and Jester. Like, I mean, I don't think anyone really knows who those guys are. But these two guys just happen to come across Spider, like, oh, we're going to take advantage of this beaten Spider-Man and try to end him once and for all.
And they come pretty close until somebody shows up and blasts the crap out of these two dudes.
And that would be the Punisher. The huge anti-hero in the Marvel Universe.
So we could pretty much just skip to the next part where Punisher brings the broken Spider-Man to Captain America's team, and everybody's really confused because they never really knew what side Punisher's on. They never know what side he's on because he's an anti-hero. He just does what he wants. So anyways, yeah, they heal Spider-Man,
They fix him up,
fix him up.
and Punisher's a part of the team now because he's helped them. And then an incident kind of just quickly happens. We'll just say the Punisher's not a part of the team very long. Two villains.
Well,
wait,
before
before
that happens,
we do that, let's rewind because I think we forgot to talk about
well, Punisher's
the
very
Thunderbolts,
important.
right?
Well, yeah, that too. But Punisher's very important because we find out that he's been behind the scenes keeping Iron Man off of Cap's trail.
Mm-hmm.
So Cap has been jumping from Shield safe house to safe house without getting noticed, and it's only because the Punisher has been basically cleaning up all the breadcrumbs that they're leaving behind. So now they want him on their team. They figure, okay, he's devoted to Cap, so that's all that matters right now. They actually get him to go into the Baxter building and map it all out too, because he's an expert espionage spy dude climbing around everywhere, and brings back the plans so that...
Oh, that's right. He did do that,
Yeah, so if they need to attack the Baxter building, they have the upper hand. They know everything about the building, the complete layout, etc. And then...
Okay, but I think we forgot to mention before that the Thunderbolts have already joined Tony's team at this point.
Right.
And that the Thunderbolts are bad guys trying to be heroes. And they're led by...
Well, there's all kinds of people. There's Taskmaster, there's Bullseye...
There's Venom, but it's Scorpion. It's not Eddie Brock. It's the guy who used to be
Right.
Scorpion.
Gordon or whatever.
Can't remember his name right now. Eddie... No, he's not Eddie. Anyways, let's not worry about it. That's the... yeah, and there's also... There's many... Who's the main guy, though? He's a Captain America villain.
Baron von Zemo.
Yeah,
Something like
this is
that.
Von Zemo or something.
He's only in the Thunderbolts for maybe one issue because they figure out that he's actually using
Zemo
this
something.
as a cause to band together a bunch of bad guys to overthrow the government.
Anyway, so these guys have joined... But they have their own plans, of course, because they're bad guys. But it's not really a big part of the story. There is something that does happen later where they kind of build up their own team of new Thunderbolts for all the villains they've been capturing.
Yeah, they had Lady Deathstroke or Deathstrike.
Deathstrike, she joins them, yeah.
She's part of them too.
Yeah. And, okay, so now we're up to speed now. Punisher has brought Spidey back, and he's a part of Team's Cap. Everything's all cool and good, seemingly. Two villains come to join Cap's team. What is Punisher's reaction to this?
Click, bang.
Bang, bang, you dead.
You're dead.
One batch, two batch, nickel and dime, bang, bang.
That was good. That was a good reference.
So he blasts these two random schmucks. Doesn't even matter. They're probably even lower classes than villains than Jack-O-Lantern and Jester. And then immediately he just kills them. He's like, what? They're villains. And this immediately Cap just jumps on Punisher and just beats the shit out of him for doing this. And kicks him off the team. He's beating the fuck out of him. He's like, fight back, you coward. And then Punisher's like, no, not against you.
Yeah, I'd never fight you. So he's forever a Cap fan, even when he's getting the living snot beat out of him. There's so much about this story arc, though. We can keep on going.
But it definitely comes down to one more battle at the end. And this is the big one at the end. Where all the heroes and all the characters involved in the Civil War just throw down. Team Cap versus Team Iron Man. And we got huge teams at this point. I think even the Atlanteans come to Cap's aid at some point, which is Namor's people, the Submariner.
Where they're going to fight is the entrance to the negative zone. So the negative zone is where they've been housing all these
villains who didn't want to register.
Yeah. So they meet them there, and right before the fight starts, Hank Pym reveals that he's not Hank Pym.
Oh, right.
He's the Hulkling.
The Hulkling, who can actually change shapes.
He can change shape
like
and
Mystique can.
just like Mystique can. So then when they figure that out, Reed Richards immediately says the cells. And then all of the cells open up, and now Cap's team is as big as Iron Man's team.
Right.
So now everybody's on equal footing, and this fight is just absolutely out of control. But S.H.I.E.L.D. is on the outside of this containment area watching this go down. And they want to basically close down the entire area for good. They want to trap everybody in the negative zone, good, bad, they don't care. They know that this fight is going to be out of control.
Right.
So they basically, Dagger, she can hear this, she's got her comms on, tells Cloak that they need to transport everybody, good, bad, no matter who it is.
Cloak has the ability to teleport with his huge cloak that he has.
Yeah. Now, Cloak looks down at the fray and he says, there's over 100 people here. I've never teleported
Never
that
done
many
that
people
before.
at once. I'm probably going to die. He's like, well, you're either going to die or we're all going to be trapped here forever. So he does it and he transports them to Manhattan.
Yeah, back to Manhattan. They're falling out of the sky now. Heroes falling out of the sky.
And the only thing that Cap thinks about while he's upside down falling to his death is he yells out, whoever can fly, pick up whoever can't fly.
Right.
Good or bad, it doesn't matter. I don't want anyone to die from this.
Yeah.
So that's what happens. Everybody gets saved, they land safely, and then the fight.
And the battle continues.
The battle continues, but now
and then it gets to a certain point. Are we at this point yet?
Yeah, I guess so.
Where I say, I don't know who. Oh yeah, a bunch of people end up jumping Cap, I think. Because what happens, Cap has a chance to finish the fight. He's going to do the final blow to Iron Man, and, you know, I don't remember who's trying to rally him on, like, do it, and then, you know, and then these group of just pedestrians, just people in the city, just jump at Cap, and there's like, he's like, stop, I'm trying to help you. He's like, how have you helped it? How have you helped? And then he's kind of like looks around, and he's like, you're right. Look at all this destruction we've caused.
Yeah, they zoom out to Manhattan. Manhattan's absolutely destroyed. You have all these A-class heroes, villains, B-class heroes, villains, just blowing up everything with total disregard for collateral damage. And that's when Captain America ends the Civil War.
Surrenders.
Yeah.
He gives himself up to the government and tells them who he is, and they take him in. And you know what? That's actually the end of the Civil War.
Maria Hill steps down as leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Tony Stark becomes the new leader of S.H.I.E.L.D.
But that's pretty much...
And then Tony, at the very end, he throws his helmet on the ground and he says, I don't think I made the right choice. I hope that everything is good from this point on. So
but
you can
there is some other footnotes, though.
Yeah, there's tons
But I'm
of
saying for
footnotes.
the Civil War storyline, this is it.
That's it, yeah.
A lot of
It's
people
over.
think that the death of Captain America is a part of the storyline, but it's an aftermath. It's the Captain America issue right after the Civil War is done, and this is when he dies. It's actually not a part of the 7-issue Civil War story arc.
No, it takes place 2 weeks after he's imprisoned. He's on trial. It's all popular, and then, yeah, he gets
And he's
shot
assassinated.
and killed, but it has nothing to
They
do
think
with
it's...
the Civil War story arc.
There's a whole bunch of things that go on with that. Falcon's involved. Bucky's involved.
That's a whole other
Rock
comic book arc.
Rumlow, who is Crossbones, he'll be in the movie. He's involved.
Yeah.
And Sharon, I'm not going to say her last name, because if you don't know anything about the movie, I don't think they've given her last name away.
That's true, yeah.
But if you knew what her last name was, you'd know why she's important. She's you could say she's a love interest kind of to Captain America. And she's very much involved as well. But that's a separate story altogether. So, you can definitely go and get this one. I know I've seen it. You can actually go get this 7-part issue of Civil War done by Miller McNiven. You can go get it. You can read those 7 parts. It mostly covers the stuff we done. It doesn't cover everything we talk about because there's a lot of side stories that happen in the Marvel Universe that just kind of... This is like Wolverine's perspective. This is what he did. This is what She-Hulk did. This is what Daredevil did. You know, like... You kind of read the stories that you're interested in, but we mostly covered the main 7, like the battle, and most of the main key points, I think.
Well, we definitely forgot the most major key point. Right at the beginning, the New Warriors confront Nitro. Nitro blows up. One person lived.
Oh, yeah, Speedball.
A Speedball, because his power, he's able to absorb energy. So his powers allowed him to live, but it short-circuited his powers, so now he lost them. The government basically pins everything on him, and he becomes the martyr for this entire thing going down. Mm-hmm. And She-Hulk is his lawyer, is his defense lawyer.
So that's another side story as well.
Completely side story, but it is the catalyst to the Civil War.
All right. That's great. I mean... I've read this before. I've had to recover it again to remember what happened this time, and I don't even think I read it all the way through last time, so I'm glad I came back and I found out what happened between that battle between Iron Man and Cap before we actually go see the movie coming to the theaters.
That's right.
All right, it's a great read.
It's a
Go out
great
there.
read.
It's a very important read if you're a fan of the original Marvel Universe. It's kind of near the end of the universe. Like I said, Peter Parker reveals his identity, which Marvel kind of like decided was a bad idea after, which gets us to some weird Spider-Man story later, but that's maybe something we'll cover another time. For the time being, this is JPar signing out.
And Miles leaving the building.
All right, and if you like what you hear, please like, subscribe, and share. This is We Promise Comics, and we'll talk to you next time.